So we have an exciting panel here, so I'll do a quick intro of myself and I'll introduce my esteemed panelists. So I'm Vinay Shandal. I'm a managing director and partner at BCG, where I have the pleasure of helping to lead our global climate and sustainability business. And joining me, the main attraction of the event are three distinguished guests, great people. I've had a chance to get to know each of them leading up to the panel, some better than others, but on my immediate left is my dear friend and partner at BCG, Samuele. Samuele, you do a lot of great work at the intersection of climate and oil and gas, a lot of work in the region itself. And folks, get this, I've known this man for years, but I just learned that Samuele is the deputy chair of the Gulf Downstream Association's Industry Trends Committee. This is the most prestigious thing in the world, and I have not known for years, and so I'm going to tease him a lot about this title, because from now on, we're going to refer to him as the deputy chair on this panel. Ahmad, you, my friend, are the CEO of Desert Technologies. You also have impeccable taste in automobiles. If you ever do a Zoom with Ahmad from his car, you will see what I mean. And most importantly, Ahmad is on a mission to green the kingdom, and we all thank you for that. In fact, as you come in to the conference and you see the self-standing container powered by solar panels, that is the product of Desert Tech and one of the latest innovations coming out of Desert Tech. So excited to get into that with you. And then last but not least, Dr. Tai, co-founder and CEO of Moqi, am I pronouncing that right? Yeah. China-based AI tech company. Dedicated to lowering barriers to adopting AI. It's one of the topics we're going to get into, which is there are barriers to the adoption. There is some hurdles to uptake. But you've been at the back or behind a lot of breakthroughs, including in high-precision image search engines and contactless palm fingerprint space. We're going to get into how some of your thinking is going to impact the important challenges on climate. Folks, we've heard it said before, that the war against climate change is going to be fought in atoms, not bits. We've heard that quote many times. I don't know who it originates from, but we've heard the quote many times. My panelists would likely disagree. They would say the war against climate change will be fought in atoms and bits. Atoms and bits. It's not just materials, it's also digital. And we know that if we want to avoid an unmitigated disaster by 2050, mitigation, so getting the world to net zero by 2050, and adaptation and resilience are critical, right? We've already begun to see the real-world impacts of climate change and how it's creating physical risk in places and in ways that we hadn't foreseen. So the question for today is, how can AI help? What is the role of AI? Because often, again, when we think about climate change, we don't obviously immediately think about artificial intelligence. So to get us started and to make sense of the role of AI in climate change, Dr. Tai, why don't we start with you? Just for our audience, help us understand, as you think about climate change and specifically mitigation, so emissions reduction, adaptation, so resilience measures, and then finally fundamentals. We think about changing human behavior. What role for AI in addressing climate change?
Yeah, I think I'm a technology person, so I'm very into AI. I saw many AI applications to solve, well, basically in China, I see and work with customers and partners to see interesting and new AI applications in all fields, basically. So we saw them, for example, in smart grids, where they have this, you can think of them power generating as a distributed grid, and there are new plants and generators. So people use AI to find better control problems, so to better optimize and control the utilities, so to improve the efficiency, that's one. And that has direct impact on the carbon footprint and also for energy efficiency. And we see AI applications in other areas like smart buildings, where you have smart control, right, for this lighting, for this, all these to reduce the waste. And we see kind of like smart city, and you have like all this traffic and you have better control of the traffic lights and better routings. So you can, like, in general, as a whole, to reduce this carbon footprint. And we can see these are just a few examples, but in general, you know, because climate change and reduced carbon footprint is a very big topic, so we'll see like all areas. And I can talk about this more, but like it's in all stages you can see that AI can play a role. Mostly, I think every company we work with, they would say, no company would say that they don't want to have anything to do with AI. They all want to have to do with AI, and they just want to find a way to do it. So yeah, I can talk.
So no, stay with us. Just, and not to put you on the spot, but sort of to put you on the spot, Cheng. What is your company doing in this area?
Yes, my company, I work with unstructured data. So we built a new type of database specifically for AI, because, you know, AI essentially is about processing information. And so there are more unstructured data out there: images, videos, audios, texts, time series, all this kind of, and sensor data, all this kind of data. So we are not a specific AI company, but we work with AI companies. We help them to better build AI applications. So it's like a software infrastructure. So we work with hundreds of AI companies to help them lower the cost to build new AI applications, and they can further use this AI application to better serve their customers. I mean, for example, to fight climate change. So we are kind of like a very infrastructure company to build a new database. And as you mentioned in the introduction, we have successful applications. The very first one is fingerprint database. It's an image database, so we built China's national fingerprint database, so it's a very large scale, but it's very accurate, so which you don't often see in other AI applications, because people use deep learning to do AI applications. They have like lower accuracy, but like for fingerprint matching, you have very, very high accuracy because you can't find the wrong guy, right? So for very high accuracy image searching, this is one thing. And we also use it for like, we help companies do satellite image analysis. So you'll see audio analysis. You'll see all these AI applications behind them. They need to be a central database to process this information, especially unstructured information. So that's what we do. We help AI companies build better AI applications.
Got it. I want to come back to you in a second, Ahmad, but Samuele, just building on that, our opening question was around, you know, it's not obvious to people that AI has a role to play in climate change. You've obviously done a nice job in elaborating how you spend a lot of time working with large corporates, heavy emitters. Give us a little bit of shine the light a bit on applications of AI among those large companies as they think about their own negative externalities and footprint.
Thank you. When a discussion about AI and climate change can get technical quite quickly. People talk about scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emissions, scope 3 emissions. I heard there also scope 4 emission that I just figured out a few weeks ago what it is. I'm not sure what I understood. But let me try to explain with a personal example that relates to daily life and then to make a connection. There are things that depend directly on your own responsibility. Take your trip here from Toronto to Saudi Arabia. Your own responsibility is to prepare, to get the right question to the audience. Then when it comes to corporation, their own responsibility is to take ownership of the emissions that are directly related to their own operation, scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. Then when you come here, you depend on your driver, you depend on the plane, you depend on the hotel. So it depends your ecosystem, your value chain. These are the scope 3 emissions. And finally, there are things that actually no one depends on, which is the government. You got your badge, your ID to be here just 5 minutes before the start of the conference. So this is the regulatory environment, the policy, the policymaker. So managing things that depends on you, things that depends on your ecosystem, and things that depends on actually the policy, to fight the climate change and to reduce emissions, quite complex. And here where AI plays a role, because AI can manage all these data points on your own operations, on your own ecosystem, and the regulator to put everything together and to find the optimal way to reduce carbon footprint.
Good. And related to that, not to make too much of a commercial plug, again, full disclosure, he works at BCG, I work at BCG. BCG has a tool called CO2 AI. I don't want to make this a commercial, but I'm going to make it a commercial. Just talk to you about CO2 AI for a minute and how that's leveraging AI and how that's helping address some of the climate issues.
That's exactly, going back to the example I just gave. So AI, the first thing that does is helping measuring accurately emissions. Actually, we did a survey in BCG in 2021, and we figured out that only 9% of the company worldwide measure emission effectively and correctly. So the first thing that the CO2 AI does is making sure that the measurement of emission is done effectively and correctly. The second is how to reduce those emissions. So AI supports decision-making by creating the carbonization roadmap and analyzing and optimizing the different initiatives that a corporation can enact to reduce emissions in a smart manner. Thirdly, it's implementing those initiatives, and here is AI can implement implementation road mapping.
Perfect. Let's give the mic to Ahmad. Ahmad, my friend, I mentioned you're on a mission to green the kingdom. We're going to talk a lot about what your company does a little later. I want to do a real deep dive on the kingdom with you in a minute. But before we get there, just at the more macro level, as you think about adoption of renewables in this market, what is your company doing to drive adoption, either through lower cost or better capacity creation using AI?
So at DT, we're trying to adhere to what the kingdom has been doing for the past couple of years. So Saudi Arabia has always been seen as an oil-driven economy, and having to shift the energy mix towards renewables requires a strong investment in infrastructure. Today, DT manufactures its own PV panels, which are Saudi-made, and we started exporting it abroad based on the demand we see. Desert Technologies has a robot-based factory in Jeddah, which is a very small-scale AI, which was established 10 years ago, before AI was ever mentioned in the sector. And what we tend to do in the coming years is, first and foremost, become a lending partner and an enabler to achieve the overarching objectives of the kingdom, which is around 58 gigawatts up to 2030, not just in establishing the strategic partnerships and bringing the technology and AI, as my esteemed panelists said, and excuse me for piggybacking on both inputs and comments, AI is mainly processing raw data to establish the information we need today. We need to start investing in R&D and a big data center to start generating the information we require to forecast desertation in the kingdom, sandstorms, and start installing our technologies in an optimal manner, knowing what we're going to do in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. Because the private sector is the partner here. And you need to look at it from a monetary standpoint as well.
Yeah.
It's always good to have your green initiatives. That ESG index is amazing, but you have shareholders at the end of the day. So I'm touching on the corporate side as well. If it feasibly makes sense through AI, you're not just enabling climate change, but you're also attesting to your shareholders that this is the right economic decision to make. And this is also done by policymaking as well. Yeah. ML, machine learning, AI is done through the R&D centers we see, such as KAUST here in the kingdom. We need to start incentivizing these innovators and either linking one or two sectors together. You know, in the past years or past economies we've seen, you see corporate maneuvers, M&As between X or Y companies. As the future goes on, our belief at DT is we're going to see corporate maneuvers between sectors. That's done through AI. As of today, you know, mobility and solar were never linked together before. Right. But with AI and with the AI solutions we try to install at DT, we're trying to forecast the demand of the EV infrastructure, not just in the kingdom, but in 24 countries surrounding the kingdom, and want to install this electrical vehicle infrastructure based on the demand we see through solar power. So two different perspectives that serve the same solution, which is the transportation sector. So solar went to transportation overnight.
By the way, I gotta say, you must be a celebrity around here, because when everybody else was speaking, nobody took a single photo. And then you started talking, and these cameras have just gone like nuts.
I have a lot of favors to pay back when I'm done. So
I hope you follow me on LinkedIn. It'll increase my own followership. No, but thank you for that. I want to come back. You mentioned shareholders, corporates. Look, we've all seen this. You can't bump into a corporate these days that hasn't made some kind of emissions reduction target, right? Like it's almost like a vaccine passport. You can't get into any, as a CEO of any company, you can't get anywhere now if you don't have some kind of net 2050, net 2030 objective. Here's the issue. Over the last 5 years, only 11% of companies that have set a target have gotten anywhere near to progressing toward it. So people have set targets, 2030, 2050, 2060. But if you look at the progress between the moment the target was set and where they are today, the emissions reduction they should have shown to date in order to be able to credibly meet that target is only there in 11% of situations. So there's no wonder you see a lot of climate activists getting worked up. Now, my friend, you spend a lot of time with corporates, and you've, Ahmad, touched on it. Why have corporates been slow in this area? What is holding them back from being more bold in meeting those targets? And I'll invite each of you in to react in a moment, but starting with my dear colleague, Samuele.
I think here there are a few factors to take into consideration. First, unfortunately, it's an ecosystem play. So whether company can independently, with their own action that are fully under our control, reduce emission, that's a challenge, because just a small part of emissions out of the corporation actually are emissions that the company and directly it's our control. Most of the emissions are emissions related to value chain that are more complex to reduce because it depends on how you work together with your supplier and your customers. Secondly, as I was mentioning before, a lot depends also on policy making and regulation. And thirdly, where I think AI can play a major role is the technology part of it. How technology-enabled AI can actually support the emission reduction target. And enablement of AI in the corporation, at least I work with, is still not at the pace that is required to achieve the target that the corporation set.
Go ahead.
If you allow me, I'll go on a more macro level.
Please.
There's this misguided conception at a lot of corporations, and I don't blame them as well, that there's a trade-off of adopting climate change initiatives versus reaching a top line or a bottom line. I think the kingdom have proven time and over again, post-COVID especially, that you could reach economic development as attested by His Excellency Minister of Economic Affairs, Mr. Faisal Ibrahim yesterday, that depending on who you ask, OECD or the IMF, we're projecting a growth of 7.5 to 9% this year at the kingdom, while adopting the Saudi Green Initiative and hopefully reducing carbon emission by 270 million tons by 2030 annually by planting 10 billion trees, the Middle East Green Initiative, the amount of ESG adaptation we see in both listed and non-listed companies. So I believe it comes on two fronts. First and foremost, policy making, as our esteemed panelists said time and over again, and the government leading the way, just for the private sector to feel safe investing for the next 30 years. Secondly, the amount of information provided. AI, when translated in the private sector to making a more economic decision, you won't have a boardroom that's going to be hesitant. You won't have shareholders that are going to be disruptive. Why? 2 years ago, we could live with a project, a cross-border project in sub-Saharan Africa with a variance of 5% in our margins. They could live with that. But we need to prepare ourselves as of today that 2 years down the road in the boardroom, they will not tolerate a 2% variance because we will have the tools at the time to make a proper economic decision based on fact, forecasted on raw data, processed into the information we need. And these are the type of investments we need to make today through R&D, through these strategic partnerships. And education is a backbone here for corporate to adapt to it. And I've heard this a while back, economies have been built in the past 100, 200, 300 years. And thank you to them and our predecessors. We have 30 years to build the economy for 2050 and 2060. It's not because we have better tools. They built that for us as an infrastructure. The data is there, but we have the tools to accelerate it. So basically, we're like an incubator economy, a VC economy, to adapt for the next 30 years. And this can only be achieved by AI, bringing these sectors together, seeing these synergies between these sectors. As I mentioned, the transportation sector, seeing e-mobility and solar. Tomorrow you're going to be seeing solar with healthcare. Why not see an off-site or off-grid vaccination center serving a village in the middle of Africa and capturing their data for the next 10 years that could maybe provide educational use, consumption, consumer goods. These are all data that could be captured through a small off-grid solution.
Right.
So these are the type of things I think corporations are looking at now. And again, just to be fair to everybody as well, we don't blame them because most initiatives are that, they're initiatives. Thankfully in the kingdom, we followed the initiative done on a national level, but policy making needs to be done on a national level as well. The G20 recurring item for the past 5 years have been climate change. So I'm sure at some point next year in India probably we're going to see major moves done on a policy making level for all countries, hopefully.
So I want to pick up one point you made, and I want to come back to you, Cheng, in a second. But this notion that you continue to see corporate executives view climate initiatives and value creation as at odds with each other. And this has been a topic we've been challenging now for the better part of 5 years, if not a decade. I have personally seen a shift in attitudes in the boardrooms and among executives, which is increasingly executives will recognize that this is not just a thing I need to declare so I can get into Davos or COP or FII, but this is a thing that if I do, I'm actually going to create value. I think that recognition is increasingly there. But I was curious by your comment that still continues to be a challenge in some people's minds. So can you just elaborate on that? Where have you seen this type of attitude? Is it in certain regions, certain sectors?
I think it's probably sectors. People usually say solar, you guys are the golden pilot to adopt ESG, AI. You guys are the perfect candidate to adopt so. But there are other corporations which is harder for them to maneuver. When you talked about petrochemical, for example, they have methane, they're burning out oil, but we're seeing serious moves. Aramco has just been announced as the first runner and for carbon credit in the voluntary carbon place market in the kingdom. And these large corporations are leading by example to ensure that they still provide global markets with necessary commodities such as oil, but at the same time they're taking the right moves and adopting the right initiatives towards climate change. So I think it depends and differentiates from one sector to another, and it's a matter of patience as well. I'm not saying 10 years, but regulators are putting, Tadawul are putting ESG indexes, which is a Saudi stock exchange, on listed companies. And it's going to be a one-size-fits-all for all companies at first, but I think moving forward, we're going to see more indexes towards petrochemical companies, for example, because of the emission, because of the carbon they produce. And so it's basically maneuvering as you go, but I think it's sector-based. It's not regional-based. As of today, post-COVID, with the digitization, we're living, I think, without borders in global markets. So it doesn't matter which region you work in. It's about policy making. It's about sectors. That's it.
I love it. Well said. I want to stay on corporates. I want to come to you, Cheng. I'm going to give you some data just to react to because you're a data guy. 87% of executives have said in a survey that my friends at BCG launched that they want to use AI as a tool in addressing their own climate challenges. Right? So 87% of executives say, I want to use AI as a tool to address climate. But here's the juxtaposition. 78% say, I can't access AI expertise. 77% say the solutions on the market are bad. I had a choice word I wasn't going to use. And 67% lack the data or lack the confidence in the data and the analysis. So can't get the talent, the solutions aren't good, don't trust what's coming out of it. Now you're on a mission to lower the barriers to adoption of AI. You clearly believe in its efficacy in driving better outcomes. Please react.
we see like energy companies, and they have like a strong motivation to adopt AI to, to reduce the carbon footprint and these sort of things. And some other, like you said, many companies, they are trying to use AI to achieve business goals, but like they are having a hard time, figure out how to do it. And I can talk from the technology perspective. The recent populism of like AI is mostly driven by deep learning, a technology called deep learning. It's not very new. It's been around for some time, but the recent data and computational power allow it to prosper. And so the deep learning models, people use it in all areas: natural language processing, audio processing, data analysis, all kinds of things. And it has some flaws. It can achieve a lot, but it has some flaws. For example, it's prone to adversarial examples. So you train a model, you feed him data, you train a model to recognize cats, but you can easily add some noise to the image so that to fool the model, to make it believe that the cat is actually a banana or something. So it's very easy to generate adversarial examples, and it also has very low precision. So you can easily train models to generate, for example, say 80 or 90% accuracy. It's good enough for some applications, but it's not for many like critical applications. So it has these flaws, the models, and it's not that mature. So people have unrealistic expectations of deep learning models and AI, and that's one thing. From the corporate perspective, there are other barriers, like you mentioned, that people need to overcome to really realize AI and to realize the benefits of AI. From technology point of view, first you need to, there's an R&D cost. You have to develop this AI system. It's a very complicated system. You need talent, and it takes time to do. And if you buy some, very off-the-shelf solutions, then very common solutions, it might not be good for the particular business, so you have to do adaptations, and that takes time and money to do. And after you have deployed, you have developed the system, then you need to deploy and to integrate. The integration is another process. It's not a single problem, but you have to integrate with your business process. So that takes a huge. From our experience, it takes longer than even sometimes takes longer a month or even to integrate into the existing business cycles. And sometimes you need to invent new cycles, business models, and to integrate AI to really generate benefits. And then AI software is more difficult to maintain than traditional software. You often see that, my model trained on this data set works, but it doesn't work on the other data set. It has some outliers. Whenever that happens, then there's a dedicated team is required to solve that and to iterate the model. So it's not just once for all. You have to continuously integrate and iterate all these models to make it really work. So it's kind of like a long process, especially when you're considering it's not mature yet. So it's hard to do, but as I talked earlier, some companies, they have realized the benefit of that. Like in smart grid companies, power grid companies, they adopt this smart control systems, generate data from all the sensors. All the data they can collect from all the sensors, time series data, and to monitor the status of all these generators and all these devices, and then they think this and feed all this data into a model to predict how to control these devices. So it has some significant impact. So successful examples, we have successful examples, and there are a long way to go for other applications.
Yeah, I want to get a little geopolitical on you, if you'll permit me. So we can't talk about, because you talked about training on data sets, and one of the concerns I have, and I'll invite others to chime in, is that a lot of the training on data sets, a lot of the talent, a lot of the context in which the AI is being developed is for the global north. It's by the global north for the global north. And you can't have a conversation about climate change and not talk about the global south, right? There's 3 billion people that are living in areas that are hyper vulnerable to the changing climate. We're seeing evidence of this every day with drought, rising sea levels, hurricanes. There was some stat I saw that 80% of AI applications and research and development is happening in the global north. And so as somebody who I believe grew up in China, lives in China, but went to Princeton for his PhD. By the way, congratulations on that. What is your view on this? Is there enough happening to bring, to democratize access to AI, to create talent, applications, and solutions that would have broader applicability in the global south? And I'd invite each of you to also come in on this topic.
Yeah, I can raise 2 points. One is that many AI solutions are kind of like universal. I mean, like climate change is a global problem. It's not just some hemisphere or some like a regional problem. It's a global problem. And many AI solutions are universal. So one example we work with is we work with a company. They have like many satellite images, and so it's a global satellite images, and they want to use AI to analyze these images to, as you mentioned, like for the farming, for the desert, and for all kinds of things of interest. So we help them build AI applications. We analyze the data, and we help them build AI applications that could help solve this problem. So it's just it's a global thing. It's not just a regional thing. So when you think of AI for other applications, natural language processing, audio processing. So yes, true, you have dialects, you have different languages, but the technology are shared. And once you can democratize technology, people can use their own data set to utilize that technology. You have a model trained on English, it's fine. And then you want to adapt to Arabic, okay, fine. Then you can just use the same technology, but change the data set a bit, so it's fine. And another thing I want to raise is, it's all about the cost. I mean, still for like AI, the hidden cost of using AI is very high. And so that's why, that's one of the main reasons I think people, well, the hidden cost is high. One of the main reasons that people can't use AI. You have, like, as you said, you have consulting, you have talent, you have to develop, you have deploy, maintenance, all kinds of things, and you need time to learn that. And we need to lower the cost of these things. And once you have...
Sorry, hidden cost, you meant like consulting, deployment?
All kinds of things.
Yeah.
Like, for example, computing power. Computing, you to train big models, you need a lot of computing power. That itself costs a lot. If you train a good model, say like GPT-3 today, it costs about like 5 million. But we see that the trend over the past 10 years is that the computational cost for AI is steadily decreasing. So and that trend continues. What this means is the 5 million model today and will be like a few $100s in 2030. So that would means more people can have access to this model. And today, if it's estimated to cost about 2 billion to train a model that has the same parameters as the number of neurons in the human brain. So it's not doable. But as that trend continues in 2030, then it's only cost about like a few $100,000. So it's doable. So as this cost continues to slow down, to continue, then we see the penetration increases. So you'll see more AI applications in more areas as the price goes down and the penetration increases. So that would allow more people, as you said, democratizing AI to more areas. My personal example is like this. When 6 years ago, when we do like fingerprint, up to fingerprint and facial recognitions kind of things, and it's very costly. It's very costly from collecting data and train models. Now it's like almost like a common commodity. Anyone can buy. So that will happen in more areas, more sectors, and more applications, I think.
So Samuel is not concerned about the over-indexation of AI to the global north. And your points are very compelling, so I'm not trivializing your position. Do you agree?
Well, at the end of the day, I also agree that AI is the solution that they provide are global solution, and they can be applied across geographies. And I also believe that it's a responsibility of the countries that invest more in this technology at the end to allow the deployment of this technology in all parts of the world, because emissions and climate change is a global problem, and AI can help solving it. And if you just deploy where you spend the money to create it, it would not be enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything to add, Ahmad?
Just a small point to add as well. I totally agree. It is a global issue, but similar to to other international bodies we've seen, like the OECD, the WTO, the IMF, the World Bank, all of which were established to serve a purpose. Information is data, is the currency of the future. So we will not be surprised if we see an international body established in the future or extracted from a current international organization to serve either underdeveloped areas or extend their resources for R&D. Because at the end of the day, this organization, this ghost organization currently, is going to serve the IMF, is going to serve the OECD, and it needs to be treated as a commodity similar to oil, because this is the currency of the future. Whether you like it or not, data's there. Whoever is going to capture it, process it through the right MLs, is the person who's going to be serving sectors. That's the beauty of it. AI is not a sector. AI is the enabler for sectors.
Yeah.
That's the way we like to do it.
Yeah. I want to talk about the kingdom since we're here. And Ahmad, we've obviously a beautiful ambition that you have. And we all know that the kingdom is frankly a great place for solar. I mean, before I arrived in Saudi, I was a white guy. I spent a day outside, and I look like this now. And so it's very attractive for solar. But the issue is adoption, right? So you probably have better data, but I think in 2021, we were talking in megawatts, hundreds of megawatts, maybe 500 megawatts. We need to get to orders of magnitude, that gigawatts, in terms of penetration of solar alone, let alone other forms of renewable energy by 2030. And so this is barely, to use a baseball analogy, this is barely the first inning. And so talk to me about, or talk to us, frankly, about where we are. I know there's a bold vision, what the momentum case looks like, and what are some of the barriers that we need to get ahead of in this market to really drive large-scale adoption of solar.
I think the jump to, just to attest to your point, the jump to 2030 is around 58.6.7 gigawatts in total. We have seen solid moves already done in the past years, either through the Public Investment Fund, through one of their portfolio companies, which is a pioneer in the sector, Aqua Power, maintaining and enhancing their development capabilities, or similar companies to Desert Technologies, who are investing in manufacturing. So what we're seeing in the kingdom is different national companies are investing in different verticals of the same value chain. So when you look at Aqua, they're doing a lot of development, large-scale projects. Desert Technology, we try to invest in manufacturing, having a local product to scale up after 2030. When you look at other similar companies such as Al-Fanar, who have great capabilities in EPC, these are all calculated investments done within the region, not just to reach a target of 2030. I believe I speak for everybody in the sector humbly when I say we're looking way beyond that, to become a central hub of exporting our goods, which Desert Technologies is doing today, to not just surrounding regions, but to the world as well. You know, the cliche has always been the kingdom exports oil. But we're proud to say that as of today, we export energy in all forms. And that's something we tend to capitalize on moving forward. And just to link it to our very important topic today in AI, you know, when we start introducing these predictive algorithms in supply, demand, maintenance, efficiency is the name of the game. And the reduction of cost is the result at the end of the day. And these are the major moves and strides, or the common variable in all companies we want to see in the coming years, not just to achieve what we want in 2030, but to go way beyond it afterwards.
We had a great conversation a few days ago about the EV container that you have on display. And by the way, congratulations on the fact that you've been a pioneer in exporting or changing the adage of oil exportation to energy exportation. I mean, that's a phenomenal milestone for the market. But just the science nerds among us, the EV container that you have out there, tell me about it, how it works, use cases, setup, dismantling, all the cool things one can do with it.
Honestly, I'd like to first, you know, when we talk about the nerds of the sector, I've been blessed with an amazing crew in Desert Technologies, who I've been a student of in the past.
Did you just call your entire crew nerds? Is that what I heard you say?
I'm one of them. I'm one of them. But you know, I've been with them for a year and a half now, and I'm still a student of this sector. But the way we've seen this product being custom made per client, either when we talk about the military sector, for example, they want to reduce the battery storage and introduce more diesel components for obvious reasons. But when we go to more green companies, you want to see a full battery solution, off-grid. It's a plug-and-play aspect. You install it in one day. It provides you power. You want to move to an off-grid location, we'll come in, we'll move it for you within 24 hours. And it's very accessible, sustainable, it's small, and the output is amazing. Plus, it captures data for both us and the client. So it's a long-term investment as well. And these are the type of investments we maneuvered around up until we have a national grid for these renewable products. So tomorrow, when we have the national grid online, these products will plug into the grid, and that's what we want at the end of the day. We want to see electricity downloading, uploading to and from the grid. So.
Yeah. But what are the current use cases for that? Who are the customers for the container you have outside today?
One of the pioneer customers was the Dakar Rally a couple of years ago. So they provided that off-grid container solution to them, as well as we were very blessed as well to work with NEOM and provide that container and an off-grid solution for their EV superchargers there as well, for their EV cars. And any person who's looking for an off-grid solution, either for construction, an event, we see Riyadh season, Jeddah season, Middle East, all these events happening in rural areas, you could power them under your theme, as we've seen today with the FII, and you could use it again for whatever reason. We always like to tell our clients it's like the suit you're wearing. You could custom make the container as you deem suitable. So
very cool, very exciting, folks. I encourage you to check it out on your way out. But Samuele, on the kingdom, I've said before, and I continue to believe that fossil fuels will still continue to be part of the energy mix, even in a net zero world, through capture and other technologies. Now, renewables definitely have a role, and we need to keep driving it, so thank you for the good work. But fossil fuels is a space where you spend a lot of time. What progress are we seeing from the large oil and gas players in the region as they try to bring down their emissions?
So, first of all, Saudi Arabia in general is already an optimal starting point. It's one of the lowest, one amongst all the producers in the world, the one with the lowest carbon footprint on a unit basis. And also, the country driven by Saudi Aramco is also working a lot in new application on how to use oil in low carbon applications, such as innovative material, no metallic material. And then here is where I believe AI can support Saudi Arabia and Saudi Aramco to create a premium to their products if they are able to leverage technology to demonstrate that the conventional energy that they produce is not only the lowest cost conventional energy produced in the world, but also the lowest emission on a unitary basis. So in a world where conventional energy will give also more space to new form of energy in the renewable space, be in a position where you are the lowest cost and the lowest carbon emitter, and you can leverage AI to demonstrate it with data analytics and real data, I believe you have an opportunity to extract some premium out of it.
Love it. Folks, we're short on time. I saved my favorite question for the end, and I want to start with you, Cheng, and I want you to really geek out on us. If you can take us into the future, what are some of the AI applications as it pertains to the war on climate that you are most excited about? And I'm going to ask each of you to follow with your own.
Well, I think the thing most exciting for me is for like knowledge creation and discovery, and we work with many examples. Like when people fight for climate change, there are many different routes. One of the solution is to find absorbers, like solvent, to absorb to absorb them. So then. There's an experiment. We worked with a collaborator. They have this kind of find the new candidates. I mean, there are thousands of candidates there for absorbers, for the solvents. And so they want to find what is the best candidate for that. Of course, traditionally, then you follow the paradigm. Like you ask a question, then you have hypothesis, then you test your hypothesis, then you observe the data, and then you iterate kind of things. So in all these, then AI can be used to each of the stage. In the ask question session, it reads all the papers, find which candidates might be useful, and then it can generate hypotheses like which combinations might lead to the better solution kind of things. So you use natural language processing to build knowledge graphs, and you generate hypotheses and generate candidates, all kind of things. And people have seen like generative AI models to generate all these kind of new exciting things. And so sometimes it gives us exciting combinations to generate new compounds. So this is very exciting, I think. And another thing I think related to this is AI. You use models to reduce the cost of AI itself. I mean, AI itself has played a dual role in this kind of change. One, it help people to reduce the carbon footprint, but itself produces a lot of carbon footprint. I mean, trained models produce a lot of carbon footprint. Like ID data centers consume about 3% of the electricity total. So if we can use AI to discover all kind of things, all this kind of knowledge, and discover new ones, then it will self-boosting, bootstrapping process. So it will increase. So a knowledge discovery, I think, most useful. And we have seen that in natural language processing and image processing.
Super exciting. I can sense the enthusiasm when you speak. Ahmad.
I think I'm very excited to see the shift in consumer behavior through AI, especially in the solar sector. Once it's plugged in through the grid, the consumer starts to see it from the supply side, especially with IoT technologies. They start to see their consumption, the bottom line of their bill or whatever is going down on a macro level. I think that's going to elevate the whole economy as a whole in regions of how they could contribute towards climate change. And this alone is exactly what we need, that big push of getting people on that side of the table from within their homes. If they're building a new house, if they're building a new complex, commercial buildings, the CNI segment, I think all of these segments, once they start seeing this predictive algorithm of how they could reduce their costs while contributing to the economy, I think it's going to be a very exciting time for all sectors as well.
Very good. Samuele, final word?
I would say in the conventional energy space, using AI to measure emission from well to wheels across the full value chain and enabling then the identification of initiatives for carbon reduction across all the value chain is where I think the future of AI in the conventional energy space will be.
Amazing. Folks, Samuele, Deputy Chair, colleague at BCG, Ahmad, CEO of Desert Technology, and Cheng, CEO of Moqi. Thank you all so much for being my co-panelists. Thank you all for your attention, and enjoy the rest of your conference, folks.